Welcome back everybody, my name is Will from Ghosthack and I have a gift for you, a very dubsteppy gift, a very melodic gift. It is the gift of a melodic dubstep project file because I made a melodic dubstep drop earlier today and I decided I want to give this away for free. That's right, this project file is free, F-R-E-E. Pognation. Now it is not a full song and I did use some plugins that are outside of FL Studio native, but I'll get to that in a minute. First, let me play you the melodic dubstep drop that I have. Hadn't made melodic dubstep in a while. That was actually pretty fun. But today I'm going to be going over this project file, explaining what you need to be able to open this project file, and I'm also going to be explaining kind of my process of when I create drops like this. Alright, so before I actually go into the individual elements, I think just right now I want to go over the plugin presets that I used in here that aren't just FL Studio native. Now, I did use a good bit of Harmor in here, which if you own FL Studio, you don't necessarily own Harmor, but you might still be able to open up the project file. It may still allow you to open up the chords. I don't know that for a fact, but I will definitely provide you the information that you need to know about recreating these chords inside of Harmor or Serum for that matter. But outside of Harmor and other FL Studio plugins, there are only 3 plugins that I used that are third party, that are not native to FL Studio. The first one is Serum. The second one is OTT, which you can get free off the Xfer website. It's the same company who sells Serum. And the third one is Stereo, which is a free plugin from Kilohertz, and I'm going to show you that once I get to that. But that's also a free plugin that you can download from their website. So other than Serum, all of the other plugins used here are either native or free. And let me tell you something, even if you don't have Serum or any of these other free plugins, I still recommend, you either give this a download or at least watch the video, because there's some hidden gems in this video that you really might want to know about. So enough chatter, I'm just going to get right into it and start from the top, which is the drums. The drums are actually pretty straightforward. Altogether, they sound like this. Nothing too complicated, it's just a normal sort of generic dubstep groove that's a little different than just a normal kick, snare, kick, snare. I added some more interesting things in here, such as those, but that just consists of a Ghosthack kick, a Ghosthack snare right here, a little reverse to go into the snare, which is also Ghosthack. We have some Ghosthack crashes right here, and then some right here, which both of these are hitting on the kick. Both of those crashes are always hitting when the kicks hit, and the kicks are hitting where the chords are hitting. So that adds a lot of impact right to those hits of the chords. It'll add a lot more power there. I have a ride cymbal, little Ghosthack ride, and then I have a Ghosthack hat top loop. This is designed for dubstep, and it sounds like this. It's just an assortment of little closed hi-hats and then an open hat on the offbeat, and it all layers together just to create some really, really nice and solid, impactful drums. And also I have a little sidechain trigger up here. I did sidechaining a little bit of the hard way in this project file, but basically I just have a channel that's just a channel right here, 100, that's docked to the right, and that's a sidechaining, and everything that I want sidechained is going through that channel. And then I added the sidechain triggers just to everywhere the kick and the snare hit. I knew I wasn't making a full song, I was just making a drop out of this, so I didn't really care too much about going into the ease of sidechaining throughout the entire song. This could get a little bit complicated if I was going to do this for like a 4-minute song, but for a drop, it's perfectly acceptable in my opinion. So no real fancy mixing tricks going on here, nothing really complicated. It's all pretty straightforward. You can see where everything's at. So I think the next thing I'm going to go into is I just want to go right into these chords. Now, I actually already have made a video about how to make really thick and juicy melodic dubstep chord stacks, and I pretty much used exactly the same techniques in this project file here as I did in that video. You can go check that out, and I'll give you more information about how you can create these chords with Harmor or with Serum. Me personally, I did this with Harmor. It's a little easier on the CPU doing it that way, in my opinion. And this is basically what I have. I have a detuned saw stack that sounds like this. It's very spread out and detuned. You can see the pitch is real high. I actually added a little bit of vibrato in this one just because I wanted to. You can see it kind of squirming around there. Next up, I have another Harmor that has like a clean saw stack. You can see there's less voices. There's only 5 voices instead of 9. The pitch is not way up here anymore. It's much tighter and much cleaner and much more understandable. And I'm layering that with the detuned one. Over that is this, which is basically just a little screechy synth. It's just detuned synth, added some saturation, a little bit of harmonizing, a little bit of vibrato, and that just has one note layering on top of these chords. I layered it with white noise from 3X Oscillator. It's just normal noise. I'm just EQing out the low end and then running it through the sidechaining. That's all that's happening there. And then I also layered it with this. Now this is a Serum patch, and it is actually a preset from Chordsmokers for Serum, which is actually a future bass Serum presets package that you can find on the Ghosthack website. But I like using this to layer under chords, because it's just a little 8-bit little digital lead thing that adds a lot of texture to these chords, in my opinion. Now I routed all these layers through the chord channel, and the chord channel is running through the sidechain, where I'm just making sure in the chord channel that I'm cutting this low end. Next up, we have some little melodic things happening in between the chords, and this is one of them right here. And you can hear how this works. We have these little bell pluck sounds, and it's actually 2 sounds put together. This is actually a mixture of a music box sound, which I use this preset all the time from Flex. I love it. So just music box 2, and I layered that with this Serum right here, which is just a saw to square sound. And then I used envelope 1 here to pluck it, and I added a little bit of chorus delay and reverb, but this envelope 2 is controlling the delay and the reverb. So as soon as I lift up the note, the delay and the reverb end. And that's done on purpose because I didn't want the synthy reverb tail to interfere with the sound of the chords themselves. I only wanted them to happen right there. So they mix with the chords like that. But then also under these chords, I have this lead. Just more melodic content stacked on top of everything else, and then you have that together with the little music box and synth sounds. This lead almost works as a pad because it's very ambient. It's not as plucky as the bell synth, and it's not as heavy as the chords. It's just very ambient in the background. I have an ARP here, which is playing exactly the same chords. I just made sure to stretch out the chords just the full length. This ARP is done by this Harmor. As you can see, it's a saw wave that I changed the pluck shape a little bit of. I brought down the pluck, added a little bit of unison, stuff like that. It's also up an octave, so it's just arpeggiating up and down, going up and down with this built-in ARP with FL Studio. I just said to go up, down. You can see where all the times are at. It's just a normal kind of ARP. It's a very, very nice layer in the background. Also, I should mention before I forget that this sound right here is called Space Voice from Flex, but that's just one that I just chose at random. So altogether, melodic elements. And obviously all of these melodic elements are also going through the sidechain. But now you've probably all been waiting for me to go over these basses. Now let me play these basses just by themselves without anything. As you can hear, we basically have two categories of basses. We have the basses that are meant to kind of stand on their own. That's those really gnarly growls, those pitchy sounds, those glitchy ones as well. And then we have a more understandable, solid bass that's a little quieter, and it's layering on top of the chords. I also go over how to make basses like that in my chords video that I hinted at earlier. Let's get into the sound design. We start out with a sub, which is very basic sub, which I also teach you how to do in the chords video, so I'm not going to get into that too much. We have this bass, which is the bass layer, which I taught you how to do in the chords video also. I'm not going to get into that as well. If you want to know how to do it, you can check out that video. But the first bass here is this one. Now, if you are curious about this bass, you actually may be a little disappointed by how I made this. This is actually a very, very simple Serum preset, and it basically involved me taking a sound that I had already made and throwing it in Serum as a wavetable and seeing how accurately I could use it as a sampler. Because these kind of growls, they're heavily processed, there's a lot going on with them, and they tend to get a little complicated in the project file. So I decided to see if I could make an easier way of doing that by just making a really basic, straightforward preset in Serum and using the wavetable to make that sound. So pretty much everything about this sound that is cool is coming off of the wavetable. However, I'm giving away this project file. You have this preset. If you have Serum, then you have this preset. You're able to use it. You just got to open the project file and save the preset. You could save this wavetable. This is just a really gnarly wavetable. It has a little bit of distortion, some hyperdimension for width. There's a high pass filter, which does a little bit, but there's also a multi-band compressor. Even without those, it still has the basic sound nailed. It's still exactly the same thing. However, I do have it running through my Thicc rack here. If I turn this off, it's the same sound, just less impressive. And I also made a video on my Thicc rack. If you want to know how I made this rack, it consists of a Maximus doing some compression, an OTT. These are the instances in which the OTT comes in. Again, OTT is free on the Xfer website. You can go ahead and download that for free. It goes into Vocodex, native to FL Studio. Love this plugin. There's some EQing going on here, controlling it a lot. Right there, as you can see, there's a patcher, which is basically, I go over this in my Thicc rack video as well, just making it a lot stronger. And then it goes into a wave shaper, and that's your basic growl. It's pitching down, it's nice and gnarly, it fits in pretty well. It's a pretty standard growl in 2020 modern dubstep. I also made another version of it, where I ran it through exactly the same effect chain, but I sort of pitched it around differently, and I used a little bit different of the wavetable position. Like I changed the wavetable position modulation here in LFO1. So the first one, second one. Second one's higher pitched and it just has a little bit of a different tone. So it's pretty much the same sound doing exactly the same stuff, just some minor edits here, and I'm having those hit in two different spots. The next sound would be this one. And funny enough, this sound actually stemmed from a Reese that I made for a Ghosthack tutorial. I also have a tutorial on how to make a heavy Reese bass, and I go over how to make almost this sound, except I made some changes. This used to be a saw wave, but I went in and selected my own wavetable that I made just from my own library, which was also kind of a gnarly, growly wavetable, and I used that instead because I wanted this to be a little less of a Reese and more of a growly thing that just had some Reese elements to it. So I just took a baseline Reese preset that I went over in a tutorial and I edited it to make it a little more growly. And as you can see, I have some high pass filter action going on here. That's making it do a little bit of talking as well as sort of lowering the high end, so it's not too crisp and piercing. So that works out pretty well, and that, since it's a Reese, it allows you to slide around pretty good. And that's the sound that you hear right in the beginning. Right there, that first heavy sound. And just like the other one, I also made an alternate version. Pretty much the only thing different about this version is I made sure that this modulation was slower. I just wanted one hit in a different spot to be a little slower, so I duplicated it and just made that change. And that's running through my Thicc rack as well, pretty much the same deal here. We have Maximus, we have OTT, Vocodex, EQ, Patcher, but we also have this Patcher right here, which this is one of kind of the hidden gems in this video, where even if you don't have some of these plugins or you're not super interested in this particular project file, it may still be good for you to download, because this is a preset that I actually made in order to be able to make gnarly growls a little bit easier. What this is it's this formant shape right here that I can control with this depth. See this depth? I can control how strong these EQ peaks are. It was about there. And I can control the frequency of them. Right now, let me copy this value. I can control the frequency of where exactly they are. Do you hear the vowel changing? It's like, that's a very important thing. And if you just find the right spot, find the right frequency, and set the depth to where you want it to be, you can give your sounds a much more growly feel. There's a more growly vocal tone to it without it, with it. Also, this is where I'm utilizing this stereo plugin, free plugin, Kilohertz, great plugin. I use it all the time. It's basically just this knob right here, but it gives you a little visual of how stereo wide things actually are. So I just wanted a little bit of stereo width. I actually had to increase it in order to get that little bit of stereo width. So nice Growl Reese hybrid happening there. That works out pretty well. The next sound I have is this one, which is definitely very recognizable. It's sort of playing this weird pattern. And you can see I've done basically what you would expect me to do. I've automated the pitch here, sliding down. I've layered a growly wavetable with a saw. And I've run it through some post-processing. There's a little bit of distortion, some EQing here. You can see there's the high pass filter with the peak that's making it have some vowely talky motion. A little bit of chorus, a little bit of hyperdimension, as well as a multi-band compressor. Just driving it through. That's also running through my fat rack, where I'm doing just the normal fat rack stuff. I have Maximus, OTT, Vocodex, EQ, I have Patcher. I also have the other Patcher that I was talking about before. This is the exact same one here that I just set to a different depth and frequency. EQing, cutting the sub as I'm doing with all of the basses, and it's just running through a wave shaper at the end here. And that's that sound. Nothing too complicated. It's just a lot in the wavetable, and I'm using asymmetrical right here. If I wasn't using this, it'd be a lot less interesting in my opinion. It's much better if you just flip it on asymmetrical plus minus and then modulate those things around. And as you'd expect, I created another version of this. And there's actually not too many different things happening here. I just changed up the modulation. I kind of switched it so the wavetable position and asymmetrical are now going in reverse. So it sounds like it's kind of sucking back into itself instead of hitting down. Also, I have it generally sliding up in pitch. I reversed that downward pitch automation, so now it's sliding up. But I did some more extreme pitch automation here as well. I added this to the semitones. So it just kind of starts out, the first couple hits of it are normal, then it slides up really high and down really low at the end, to add a little bit of variation and a little bit of interest. Other than that, the effects and everything on this sound are pretty much the same. I just went in and tweaked it until it sort of fit that moment that it was in a little better. And also, I have this audio file right here, and this audio file is actually a big long file of glitches that I created because I was using a specific plugin called Fracture, and I was doing some resampling of basses and other sounds, and I created this big long file of glitchy bass sounds. And there's just a lot of content in here. I actually have a lot of different versions of these kind of files. And basically, I just grabbed a few glitches from specific areas, sounds that I thought went really nicely, and I layered them together and I used them in here. You can see everywhere there's a little bass audio file that's layered. This whole thing is basically the same thing, just looped. So I can just zoom in on this area. You can hear this sound is one of them. Right there. I have these little hits right here that are just hitting in those small areas. I just wanted those hits to give a little more impact to the blah 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 blah. Then we have these happening right here. Sometimes it's necessary to layer these audio files with other sounds in order for them to sound just as full and as rich as the other sounds. And I did that a little bit here as well. You can hear what's going on here. It's basically just a glitchy, bassy mess of different things happening. You can hear there's sub patterns in here. There's that blah, 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 blah. The variation of that happening right here. We have this and then this. And really the last thing I added here was just a little bit of crowd noise in the background. This is a very simple concept. You just take the noise of, you just take the noise of some crowd. You can get noises like these on YouTube. Just cheering in the background, cheering you on. And that adds just more ambience and kind of fills out the background of the track. So I am going to do a little bit of a recap to just re-explain everything that you need in order to be able to download and open this free project file. But before I do that, let me go ahead and play you the final drop. So this project file was created in FL Studio 20.7.3, which is, I believe, the most recent version to date. I was also using version 1.308 of Serum, which that version was released September 23rd, 2020. Obviously, if you're using any later versions of Serum or FL Studio, then these will be totally compatible. You won't have to worry about that. Now, if you have Serum and FL Studio, but you don't have those updates, you can update both Serum and FL Studio for free, both from the ImageLine website for FL Studio and the Xfer Records website for Serum. Lifetime free updates, they save the day. As I said before, this project file also contains Harmor, which is just updated the same as FL Studio. It contains OTT, which is free from the Xfer website, and it also contains the stereo plugin from Kilohertz, which is free from their website as well. So I'm pretty sure that covers all angles as far as this project file. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you liked it, you know what button to press, and if you have any other ideas of videos or tutorials we should make in the future, let us know in the comments below. We're always open for ideas and we like seeing what you guys want. We really appreciate all of the support and I will see you in the next video. Happy producing.